I still remember how excited I was that morning. My wife, Eliza, and I had been dreaming of buying our first home together, and today was the day we were going to the bank to apply for a mortgage. We'd scrimped and saved every extra penny. I'd even picked up weekend shifts at the garage to build up our down payment. I thought this was it, the beginning of our future. Eliza looked stunning as always, wearing a navy blue dress she'd saved for special occasions. She kept checking her reflection in the car's rearview mirror as I drove us downtown, smoothing her dark hair and touching up her lipstick. I thought it was nerves about the loan appointment. I told her she looked amazing, and she smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. The bank lobby was quiet when we arrived. We were greeted by a young man named Patrick. He was tall, with a confident smile and a perfectly pressed suit. I remember feeling relieved. He seemed competent, and I wanted everything to go smoothly. We sat together in Patrick's office. He complimented Eliza on her earrings, and she blushed more deeply than I'd ever seen. I chalked it up to flattery in a stressful situation. Patrick guided us through the paperwork, leaning in close to Eliza to explain details while I listened carefully. Sometimes, it felt like they were the only two people in the room, whispering and laughing softly. I dismissed it as my imagination. After all, I trusted her completely. A week later, Patrick called to say there were some issues with our paperwork and asked if Eliza could come in alone to sort them out. I was swamped at work and encouraged her to go, telling myself it was better if at least one of us could get it resolved quickly. That evening, she came home later than usual, cheeks flushed, her hair tousled like she'd been caught in the wind. She claimed the appointment ran long and Patrick was thorough, but something about the way she said his name made my stomach twist. Still, I didn't want to seem jealous or controlling. We were adults, I told myself, and I should trust her. A few days later, I noticed she started dressing up more for work, skirts a bit tighter, heels a bit higher. When I teased her about it one morning, she brushed it off, saying she wanted to look professional in case she had to stop by the bank again. It sounded reasonable enough. Then one Thursday, I finished my shift early and decided to surprise her by picking her up at the bank. I parked across the street and watched the front doors. After nearly an hour, I saw her emerge with Patrick, laughing, heads bent close together. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear as naturally as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. They stood on the sidewalk, oblivious to the world. When Patrick leaned in and kissed her, it felt like the universe dropped out from under me. I couldn't breathe. My hand shook so violently I almost dropped my keys. I wanted to burst out of the car and confront them, but I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to break free. I drove home in a fog, barely remembering the route. That night, I waited for her on the couch. When she came in, she looked surprised to see me awake. I asked how her day was, and she spun a story about errands, meetings, traffic. I just sat there, nodding like a fool, trying to match the image of the woman I married with the stranger standing in front of me. The next morning, I called in sick. I needed answers. While she showered, I found her phone on the nightstand and scrolled through her messages. There it was, a string of texts from Patrick, each one more intimate than the last. Plans to meet up, inside jokes, late-night confessions. Photos of them together in hotel rooms, of Eliza smiling in lingerie I'd never seen before. Reading those words felt like swallowing broken glass. My hands went numb. My mind reeled between rage, disbelief, and a hollow ache so deep it felt like it would swallow me whole. How long had she been lying to me? Was everything we built, our plans, our dreams, just a facade? I put her phone back exactly where I found it. I didn't want her to know I knew. Not yet. I needed time to think. Time to figure out what the truth meant for me, for us. For the life I thought we were building together. The rest of the weekend was a blur. We went through the motions of our life: grocery shopping, dinner at our favorite diner, watching old movies on the couch. She laughed at my jokes, kissed me goodnight, and snuggled close like everything was fine. But every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was her with Patrick, her soft moans, his hands on her skin, the look of desire on her face. I felt like a ghost in my own home, drifting from room to room, haunted by memories that suddenly felt counterfeit. Every touch from her was laced with poison. Every smile felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. By Monday, I knew I couldn't keep pretending. But what should I do? Confront her? Confront him? Leave? I spent sleepless nights replaying every conversation, every kiss, every time I told her I loved her. How could the person I trusted most become the one who destroyed me? I told myself I needed more proof, something undeniable. So I called in a favor from an old friend who worked security downtown. He installed a small camera in our car, hidden just under the dashboard. If they were meeting again, I'd have the evidence I needed. And deep down, a small part of me hoped I'd been wrong, that the video would show her alone, that this was all a misunderstanding. But I already knew the truth. I could feel it in my bones. I spent the next few days in a haze, going through the motions at work while my mind was consumed with what I knew was coming. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, half expecting a message that would shatter what little composure I had left. I tried to talk myself into believing there could still be some explanation, but the images of her with Patrick haunted me. There was no other truth. Thursday morning, my friend sent me a message. "Got something for you." My heart sank. That night, I waited until Eliza was asleep and slipped out to my truck. My friend had left a flash drive in the glove box. Handshaking, I plugged it into my laptop and hit play. There they were, Eliza and Patrick, sitting in the car we shared. She was smiling at him, touching his arm, laughing in that soft way she used to with me. Then, without hesitation, she climbed into his lap, their bodies pressing together, as if they'd been starving for each other. His hands were on her hips, her hair fell over her shoulders, and then they kissed, hungrily, desperately. I felt sick. Watching them, I realized it wasn't just lust, it was familiarity. This wasn't a fling. It was something that had grown roots. How many times had they done this while I thought she was running errands or working late? How many nights had I held her close, never knowing she carried the scent of another man? I spent hours staring at the paused video, the glow of the screen reflecting off tears I hadn't realized were falling. Around 3 a.m., I knew I couldn't hide it anymore. I had to confront her. But I didn't want a shouting match or a scene. I wanted the truth. And I wanted her to see the man she betrayed, not the doormat she thought I'd always be. The next evening, I told her we needed to talk. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd planned our wedding and dreamed about the future. I looked her straight in the eyes and asked, "Is there anything you want to tell me about Patrick?" She flinched. It was subtle, but I saw it. Her eyes darted to the side, searching for an escape. "Patrick? He's just the guy from the bank," she said, her voice wavering. I nodded, pretending to accept it. Then I slid the laptop across the table and hit play. The kitchen filled with the muffled sounds of her laughter and their kisses. Her face drained of color. She reached out as if to close the laptop, but I slapped her hand away. "Don't," I said, my voice cold. "We're going to watch this together." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Not sympathy. Not anger. Just an icy emptiness that scared me more than rage ever could. When the video ended, I looked at her. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She buried her face in her hands. "A few months," she sobbed. "It started after the second meeting at the bank. I didn't mean for it to happen." He made me feel alive. Alive. The word echoed in my mind like a cruel joke. What did she think I'd been doing? Working myself to the bone to give us a future while she found excitement in the backseat of our car? I asked her the questions that had been eating me alive. Did she love him? Was she planning to leave? Had there been others? She swore it was only Patrick, that she never wanted to leave me, that it was just a mistake. But the damage was done. I told her to pack a bag and leave. At first, she refused, insisting we could work through it, that she still loved me, that we could go to counseling. But the words sounded hollow, like lines from a bad play. I didn't want her love. I wanted my dignity. She spent the night sobbing in the guest room while I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling. I thought about the first time we met, how she'd laughed at my stupid jokes, how we danced barefoot in the kitchen at midnight. How did we get here? Where did I go wrong? By morning, I'd made my decision. I called her mother and told her to come get Eliza. When her mom arrived, I handed her the bag I'd packed myself. Eliza tried to hug me, but I stepped back. She looked at me with wide, desperate eyes. "Please don't do this," she begged. "I didn't do this," I said quietly. "You did." As they drove away, I felt a strange mixture of relief and grief. The life I thought I had was gone, replaced by a painful silence. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Every room in the house felt like a graveyard of memories. The couch where we used to cuddle, the kitchen where we cooked together, the porch where we talked about growing old side by side. I boxed up her clothes, her photos, everything that reminded me of what we'd lost. At night, I lay in bed alone, the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest. I wondered if I'd ever trust again, if I'd ever feel whole. But slowly, something else began to take root. A sense of quiet strength. I realized that as much as she'd broken me, she hadn't destroyed me. I was still here. I was still breathing. In the weeks that followed, friends and family reached out, offering support. I started therapy, determined to understand why I ignored the red flags, why I let myself believe love meant blind trust. I began running every morning, pounding the pavement until my lungs burned, until the world around me felt real again. One evening, I sat alone on the porch, watching the sunset. The sky blazed with color, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself hope. Hope that someday, I'd find someone who deserved the love I gave so freely. Hope that I'd rebuild the dream she shattered. Hope that, in time, I'd forgive myself for loving someone who couldn't love me back. Because even when love turns to ashes, we can rise. And I promised myself I would.